I think we'll make a proper start now because it's 2 minutes past 7. So as I said at the beginning, for those that joined, welcome to our final part of our Advent series, Challenging Apartheid in Advent. And I hope you've enjoyed the journey that we've taken over this series. We've looked at Zionism and apartheid, colonialism and apartheid, militarization. And tonight we're finishing, hopefully, on a very hopeful note on looking at what a future free of apartheid would look like for Palestinians and Israelis. I'm just going to very briefly, just a couple of housekeeping points. As you join the call, you will be on mute. And please, can I ask you to stay on mute? It basically means we don't get all that background noise. We don't get sort of the dog barking or other half making a cup of tea. Gives us real chance to hear and also to record our speakers without interruption. If you would like to ask a question, though, we would love you to do that in person. And if you feel confident to do that, the best way when it comes to the Q&A is for you to raise your hand virtually. And that button is found in the Reactions tab on Zoom at the bottom of your screen. If you would prefer to ask your question in the chat box, that is also absolutely fine. And we will open that chat up now. And please do ask your question in there and I'll keep a note of them. And when we come to the Q&A, we'll go through them in order. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers. I'm just going to pull up the biographies because I did have them on my screen before. And the first of our speakers tonight is Reverend Imad Haddad. He was born and raised in Beit Jala in Palestine in 1979. He studied at the Near East School of Theology in Beirut in Lebanon, where he received his bachelor's degree in theology. Following that, he did a 1-year study at the Lutheran Theological Southern Seminary in South Carolina in the United States. And he was first ordained in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Jordan and the Holy Land on the 2nd of March in 2008. And he first served at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Bet Sahor, which I know many of you will have been to. In 2012, he was called to serve at the Church of Hope in Ramallah. And in 2020, he moved not too far away, but a bit of a distance across to the Good Shepherd congregation in Amman in Jordan. And that's where he continues to serve today. He has also fairly recently been appointed the chairperson of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land Synod. He's a member for the Society for International Pastoral Care and Counselling. And he's married to Rula and has 2 daughters, Deline and Yara. So without further ado, it's a real privilege to have you, Reverend Imad, and thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted and really looking forward to what you're going to say. And I'd like to hand the floor over to you for up to 20 minutes, please, for you to share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. And I hope you have a pleasant Sunday. And if you watch the game, I hope you had a pleasant watch of the game. A future without apartheid for Palestine and Israel, for Palestinian and Israelis. I've been dreaming of this title ever since I was called and approached to speak about this topic. And then I start to move on to see what kind of statistics should I put in, what kind of scientific approach should I take. And then I said, no, I'll speak from within, from my heart. I'll speak from my own experience. And for me, a future without apartheid will mean that I should not see my daughter's eyes dripping with tears as we move from Ramallah to Bethlehem to visit family, because she needs to stop at the checkpoint and her father needs to be asked. I started to think of youth groups, of somebody from my youth group who holds a Jurumat ID but needs to walk with us through checkpoint, and then he's pulled away because of his color, the color of his identity card. I started thinking of this young man who wore a T-shirt with the title, "I'm a Palestinian." And then in Jerusalem, he was beaten and harassed. Of the many children who are in jail right now, of the many families who are breaking up because they cannot live together, of those who miss dear ones because they are shot and killed or jailed or exiled. A future without apartheid should deal with this, with the recognition that those people suffered and there should be no more suffering. A future without apartheid means that every person needs to be equal. Equal as a human being, not only equal with rights. There should be no more second-class citizens. No more people who are allowed to pass or not to pass. We should not pray anymore, lead us not into humiliation. We need to be there, alive, with fullness of life. That is the future of Palestinians and Israelis without apartheid. Now, when I came to think of it, it can't only be of emotions, what I need to present to you. There should be some points that I can discuss with you and present to you. I know that what I will be saying now is not very new to most of you, and I know that most of those who hear us now are either experts on the topic or have very good knowledge and really experienced, and they have practiced on ground what does it mean to live and to practice against apartheid. So I will share with you this evening, I'll share with you 5 points. 5 points that I kept thinking of over and over again. And I'll speak them as they are. And hopefully during our Q&A, we'll have some more time to discuss what do I mean with them. My first point is, to have a future without apartheid, we need first to recognize that there is apartheid. We need to tell the truth. The truth, the whole truth, needs to be told. We cannot anymore hide behind other words or other expressions or other justifications. If somebody is ill and goes to the doctor, the first thing the doctor says is the diagnosis of the illness. And then they start with the treatment. Unfortunately, what I experience right now is we are afraid to say that there is apartheid. A lot of people are afraid to say it. A lot of countries, a lot of churches, a lot of organizations are afraid to say that. Not only those who are foreigner to Palestine and Israel, but those who are in Palestine and Israel, those who experience firsthand the discrimination and apartheid. My experience some 4 months ago with the WCC was very bad, because from the first day we stepped in, we were fighting and discussing and arguing and sweating only to put the word apartheid in, just to recognize that there is an apartheid. We cannot let our feelings, our religious feeling, or our historical feeling gets into the right and the truth. So this is my first point. Tell the truth, whatever the truth it is. My second point. Yes, I hate the word conflict, but for the rules of word, I will use this word. The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians is not like any other conflict. What I see right now, that there are people who wants to call it that there is an apartheid politics, because it's very similar to what we witnessed in South Africa, or it's very similar to what we witnessed and read about in the Second World War. Yes, there are similarities, but it's different. If we keep on naming what happened in South Africa or what happened in Second World War, we do two things. We belittle their own experience, and that's not our right. And we undermine our experience as Palestinians and Israelis. So every conflict, every issue is its own self and needs to be recognized as its own self, dealt with as its own self. We may learn from those who passed before us. We may learn from those who dealt with something similar, but we cannot duplicate their experience, because that's something different. We need to be creative, and we need to be alive. If we are dealing with apartheid today, then our actions needs to be today, not yesterday. Like today's methods, not like yesterday's methods. This is my second point. My third point. Please, I know that we are Christians and we love to be equal to everybody. We love to give everybody their own right. But there are no equal parts to this conflict. There are no equal sides to this conflict. There's an oppressor and there's an oppressed. We cannot, by our own virtue of Christianity, say, oh, if we speak with Palestinians, we need to speak with Israelis. If we support Palestinians, then we need to support Israelis. No, we need to stop that. You are not dealing with two equal parts. We are not dealing with two equal parts. They're two different. Two different. My problem a lot of times with partners from around the world, that they feel if they come and visit Palestinians, they are obliged to go and visit Israelis. If they come and visit a church, they are obliged to go and visit a synagogue. If they came spoke with Palestinian politicians, they are obliged to go and speak with Israeli politicians. It's not the same. That's one part. The second part of the issue, if you really think that we need to progress forward and that we need to make a difference, then let's go back to the first point and tell the truth. Even if Palestinians are doing wrong, then you have to tell them that is wrong. My problem is most of the times that's not true. With a lot of people around the world, when they doing solidarity either with Palestinians or with the Israelis, they are more Palestinians than a Palestinian or more Israeli than the Israelis. And this is part of the problem, not part of the solution. Be pro-just, be pro-right, but don't be pro-side. Again, we stress, there are no equal sides. Don't deal with them as equal sides. My fourth point is, it speaks to me, it speaks to our people. If we are looking for a future without apartheid, then we need to start working ourselves as people. We cannot depend on solidarity movements. Yes, we need solidarity movements, but we need to start working ourselves. We need to recognize that we live a status of apartheid. There are two sides to this. The people who are very tired, exhausted, not being able to earn their own living. So the conflict, the suffering is being reduced to the minimum. I want to earn my food. I want to put food on my table for my people. This is the fact that we are facing. The other side of the problem, I don't care. People don't care anymore. They're tired, therefore they do not care. And there are small, very small group of people who are working to educate and to raise the voice. There needs to be a change. So if we are looking for a future without apartheid, we cannot leave it for those who work with us. We need to work ourselves. Can we do it? This is a big question. Is our status under occupation allows us to do that? This is a very big challenge. Are we strong enough to say enough is enough? This is what I really hope to hear from my own people on the ground. And this leads me to the fifth point. we hear the word apartheid. And when we come to describe the word, we describe it with a physical entity on ground. I'm afraid apartheid is becoming much more than the physical entity on the ground. It's becoming with the mentality of people using and abusing other people. Apartheid is becoming with the words that we use, with the expressions that we choose to say, and even with the thoughts that we bear in our minds. So we need to liberate our own minds from apartheid. We need to liberate our own heart from living apartheid before we think of a future without apartheid. Long time ago, when I used to speak with my youth group, I used to tell them that yes, we live behind walls, and we live in a state of occupation, and we live in a very bad economic situation. But the most dangerous is to live with the wall in our hearts. When we start saying there's no way to live, there's no way forward. I believe this is the same case with apartheid. We cannot fight apartheid as long as we live apartheid in our hearts and our minds. So we need to liberate ourselves and then work on the ground for a better future, a future of equal rights, equal humanity, and equal presence on the ground. These are 5 points that I shared with you. To be honest, I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. I cannot be blind. And I need to read, we all need to read the facts on the ground. What we hear from the news, what the last days brought us, and what the coming next days will bring us is not something rosy. And it's growing even bigger. Apartheid is growing bigger. So I'm not optimistic, but I'm hopeful, because I believe that hope is not a dream only. It is our hands busy at work, our voices announcing and speaking and educating ourselves and our people. In the 60s, Martin Luther King stood and said, I have a dream. I beg your pardon, I will say, I have a hope. It's not only a dream nowadays. I'm not only wishing, I'm working for it. Therefore, I don't want to take much longer of your time. I will share a couple of words from the Bible, one from the Old Testament and one from the New Testament. You see, I'm as a pastor, I cannot live without reading from the Bible. It's still Sunday. The first one that I will share with you is very dear to my heart. And it's from Jeremiah 1, 11 to 12. Jeremiah 1, 11 to 12. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And I said, I see a branch of almond tree. Then the Lord said to me, you have seen well, for I'm watching over my word to perform it. I'm watching over my word to perform it. And the word of God for us, I've given you life. And that's what we need to live. If you come here to Palestine, Jordan, the first fruit of the spring is almonds. The first to bloom is almonds. So the first to see is freedom and a world without apartheid. And we want to see it. The second verses I want to share with you is Revelation 21, 1 to 4, sorry. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, see, the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. Death will be no more. Mourning and crying and pain will be no more, for the first things have passed away. Now this, in our tradition, we read this for the last Sunday before Advent, the last Sunday of church calendar. And people always think of it for the apocalypse, for the days to come. I love to see it for the day now. God is among us now. God dwells with us now, not only in the future. God will wipe every tear now. A new heaven and a new earth, new people will start now. And that is hope. That is hope at its best. You know, today I was sharing my meditation with the people, and the last sentence I said, at the lowest part of our feelings, when we feel so despair, when there's no hope anymore, when we cannot see any future, when we cannot hear God listening, speaking to us, when we cannot see a direction forward, then God says, here I am with you. And that's what I love to see. And that's what I leave with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Imad. Oh, so much food for thought. I think we'll be having lots of questions, and Susan's just said one of the most moving talks I've heard. I completely agree, Susan. Just really exciting to hear your hope for the situation as well. And I like that distinction between hope and optimism, and looking at what's real and what's happening on the ground. I think it's very hard for us to feel optimistic, but it's amazing that we can still feel that hope inside from our faith and from God. And thank you for sharing those two fantastic Bible verses as well. We'll make sure we get those out on our email where we follow up as well, so people can reflect on that in the coming few weeks. So we're going to move to our second speaker now. And our second speaker is a different one from scheduled. I'm very sorry to say Nadine Bittar, who was going to speak to us from the Catholic Youth in Palestine, has unfortunately come down with the flu, which I can very much sympathise with because I had it last week as well. Unfortunately, she's not able to join us, but Omar Harami from our partner Sabeel Jerusalem has kindly stepped in. I know he's a hugely familiar face to lots of you, but I'm really excited because I think this is something he can really speak to and has a lot of vision for, and has shared a bit about that with me recently when I was in Jerusalem with him. So I'm hoping he's going to inspire you with some thoughts as he did with me. So Omar, if you're ready, I've enabled you to screen share. So when you're ready, if you'd like to take over, and then we'll come to our Q&A at the end. Sorry, actually, Omar, I should introduce you officially in case anybody doesn't know who you are. So I will do that very quickly. Omar is the Executive Director of Sabeel Jerusalem. He's been part of Sabeel since 2006, and he also serves on the Kairos Palestine Steering Committee. Omar would say that he loves making conflicts and disturbing the peace, which those of us that know him well know that he likes to challenge, he likes to provoke debates, and he's a strong believer that people have the ability to change their own circumstances, which very much is reflected in what we've just heard from Reverend Imad. He calls us to put our faith into action every time we hear from him. He is part of the Greek Orthodox Church in Jerusalem and lives in Jerusalem with his wife and 2 children. So Omar, whenever you're ready, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'm always ready, or most of the time I'm ready. So today has been like a big day with the World Cup. So thank you for competing with the World Cup, Friends of Sabeel UK. So much faith, you know, it's with the hundreds of billions of dollars we have done to promote a soccer game. The alternative session is Friends of Sabeel-Kairos meeting. And it's a very interesting topic, especially around Christmas with the Apartheid. So I have, I've prepared somehow like a PowerPoint. And I mean, it's not the best PowerPoint, but that's why I'm only like the backup speaker. Nadine would have been the first speaker, and please hold her in your prayers. She's been sick for almost a month, trying to recover from a flu. I even tried to call her before the meeting, and she wasn't feeling very well, and so please accept her apologies. So I mean, it's Advent, Apartheid, and in a way it's like an end of Apartheid, or a future without Apartheid could be an excellent Christmas gift for us. But it's even more interesting. It's actually the Christmas story. And I'll share with you the reflections that we have through Palestinian liberation theology on how you look, what needs to be done to have a future without Apartheid. So as you're all aware, Palestinian liberation theology relies very much on people sitting down and reflecting and reading the Bible and struggling. What does it mean to be a Palestinian and a Christian living under occupation, living under apartheid? And I think it's very interesting because it's all about how you approach your problems and your challenges. In a way, it's some Christian ideologies or theologies or approaches think it's like you need to come and pray to God and say, Lord, my struggles are great, or my challenges are great. In another way, it's you can have also the very conflict-oriented or aggressive approach and come and say it's systems of oppression, apartheid, injustice. Know that my God is great, and it's the same words more or less, but it's a different mentality of facing the challenges. In Palestinian liberation theology, it is if we believe that we are if we are faithful to God and God is on our side, we're able to overcome any challenge. But to reach this mentality, to be fully part of God's kingdom and in a connection with God, with Jesus our Lord, I think the Advent story is a way to look at it. And the approach for us as Palestinian Christians or supporters of liberation theology, you can find it very strong in the Advent story. Now it's not very far from Jerusalem, the old city. There is a valley that we call it the Valley of Death, and this valley is where people used to sacrifice for their gods, pagan religions of Jerusalem. With people would bring their children and sacrifice them at certain celebrations to their pagan gods, and that is like very common in the Middle East and in many parts of the world. That it's to show how much you love God, how much you respect God, that you will take what is the most precious, either it is family members, even property, kettles, the most precious, and continue to sacrifice it and offer it to God. Even within the Jewish tradition at the temple, people used to sacrifice perfect pigeons, perfect animals to God, to please God. In Advent, if we want to say we're going to respect or to celebrate Christmas, we need to understand what Christmas is and how complicated Christmas is. Christmas and the Nativity story is a religious revolution. In its approach, is God is coming to sacrifice His only Son Jesus for us. In a way, it's a theological revolution. God is saying human rights or humans are more important than God, in a way, that God would sacrifice for the salvation of people rather than people are needed to sacrifice for God. And if we accept as followers of Jesus this theological revolution, that it is no longer we are our importance is as equal to God, if even not more, in the eyes of God through love, that means it's every system should not, in our religion, we should not tolerate the violations of human rights, as small as basic discrimination or as serious as apartheid. So if we are faithful Christians, if we want to celebrate Christmas, the real meaning of Christmas, there's no space for apartheid within the theological message of Advent. If we believe, if we like the stories of the family tree of Jesus, it's very interesting because it sheds light on the theological discussions within the early church or the writers of the Gospels. So some would trace Jesus back to Abraham as Jesus. Abraham is the father of all religion, and Jesus, the father of monotheistic religions, and Jesus goes back to him. Or even like in another writing, they would trace him back to Adam. He's even greater than the monotheistic religions. He is even more, he's back to humanity, the first humans, Adam and Eve. And if you actually look at it very carefully, you'll find the connection with Jesus' lineage. It connects with Joseph. And Joseph is not Jesus born in human flesh, from a father, not from a mother, not from a father. So Joseph lineage is not very important to us to understand it. It is actually through Mary. And in a way, this just shows that we're not even as Jesus is not only a simple teacher, and he was saying that there's a specific group of people should be seen as higher than other people. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega. If we follow Jesus, then we need to accept the inclusive love of God of all creation, not only of people of monotheistic religions or even as human beings like Adam and Eve, but all creation, that Jesus is God in flesh. And if we accept this, that we are all equal to God and we're all equal to each other, then there is no space for apartheid. If we want to celebrate the Christmas story, then there is no place for one group to be better than another group. And if we look at the story of Joseph and Mary, with Mary confessing that she is pregnant and Joseph getting confused, how could she become pregnant without, and I know I'm not the father. In a way, he feels that she has betrayed him, she has cheated on him. And in the Bible from Mathew, it says, and her husband Joseph, being a just man, being a righteous man, and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. So it's in the Christmas story. If we're reading this Christmas story with Mary and Jesus, it's very interesting because it's Joseph decides to break the law that God has provided, at least within the Jewish teachings, that for for Joseph to be faithful to God, he needs to report Mary so that Mary gets stoned or whipped, whatever the punishment for adultery was. And Joseph breaks the law. And for us, and if we want to be called righteous, if we want to be respected by God, we need to break unjust laws. And that is very beautiful in the story of Advent, of Christmas. We cannot come and celebrate Christmas without breaking laws. We cannot come and celebrate Christmas without accepting that there is no preferences of one group over another. We cannot celebrate Christmas when we say human beings are, some groups of people are less important than another group of people, or even God and religion himself. A beautiful also story from the Advent with Mary and Elizabeth. It's two women coming together and summarizing, it's with John the Baptist with John the Baptist and Jesus in their mother's wombs. And I mean, it is the theological discussion. It is that says, with the song of the song that glorifies Mary's song. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He had brought down rulers from their thrones, but he has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. This is Christmas. This is the preparation for Christmas. If we're going to accept Jesus and John the Baptist, we need to understand that there is a shift of power, that it is no longer the power is with the people who are the decision makers, whether they are the World Council of the Churches, whether it's the bishops of the churches in Germany or in Europe or in the UK. If we're going to say we are following Jesus and Jesus has a message, the message is very clear. It says where the power is. The power is with the people who are the meek, with the people who are on the margins. And it's no longer that it's apartheid, it's the people who are, the sin of apartheid is committed against them are the most powerful people, because that's the story of Christmas. We are no longer under mercy. We are on the journey of our liberation. So with Christmas and apartheid, it's when we welcome Jesus, and in the Middle East, we didn't celebrate Christmas. It's only when the Lutherans and the Anglicans and the Protestants came here, it became a bigger celebration. For us, it is Epiphany and Easter. These are the big holidays of the church. And we welcome Jesus. Either we want to go back and welcome him and like John the Baptist, a message of love and solidarity and justice and a call for people to repent, or we just decorate a Christmas tree. For us in Palestine, in Palestinian liberation theology, as a church, if you want to have Jesus as part of your Christmas, you need to understand there's no space for apartheid. Not because you stand with the Palestinian rights, or because that it is only unethical. It's because that everything about Christmas, everything about Christianity is completely against all of these systems of apartheid. Even though that many of our countries unfortunately support it, many of our church leaders are silent about it, or even there's many of the companies that benefit from it. All of their opinions, all of their power is irrelevant. They are nobody, because it is the Alpha and the Omega is Jesus, and the good news is in Bethlehem, and freedom is coming.
Thank you so much, Omar. As always, so much information in such a short space of time, but just so really lovely to hear your thoughts, and just to reflect on there's no space for apartheid under Jesus Christ, and I think that's a sentiment we all share, but some wonderful examples about how we can be practical in our hope and practical in our actions as well. So we are coming to the point now where we're going to have our Q&A, so we're going to stop the recording. So just to say before we do so, that a huge thank you to our two speakers.